California state parks have developed Tahoe's first underwater trail. It's called the Emerald Bay State Park Maritime Heritage Trail.
What happens when a postcard-perfect vacation destination doubles as an unreachable, sub-zero morgue? As recent severe droughts forced Lake Tahoe's waterline to recede, remote rovers and elite divers ventured into its depths once thought impossible to reach. However, what they uncovered 1,600 feet below is a terrifying, frozen treasury of secrets the world was never meant to see. To understand how these chilling secrets finally came to light, we first have to look at the unprecedented environmental crisis altering everything right at the surface. The receding waters of Big Blue. Lake Tahoe has always been known to everyone as a deceptive paradise. Perched high in the Sierra Nevada mountains at an elevation of over 6,220 feet above sea level, it proudly stands as the largest alpine lake across the United States and North America. Its stunningly clear blue water looks perfectly inviting from the shore, yet it hides an incredibly steep, staggering drop-off that reaches a maximum depth of 1,645 feet. If you dropped the entire Empire State Building into the deepest trench of this basin, the massive skyscraper would disappear completely below the waves with room to spare. Lately, this iconic body of water has experienced a wild climatic seesaw. The surrounding mountain region routinely swings between historic winter snowpacks and punishing multi-year droughts. This intense dry spell recently forced the lake level to plummet down toward its natural rim, completely stopping the natural outflow of water into local rivers. As the waterline receded, the shrinking shoreline began exposing massive expanses of the lakebed that had been deeply submerged for over a century. Longtime locals watched in disbelief as popular tourist docks became stranded wooden skeletons hanging over cracked, dry mud, setting off a quiet panic among environmentalists who realized something historic was unfolding. This dramatic environmental shift unexpectedly created an incredible opportunity for modern exploration. The falling water levels, combined with advanced, autonomous underwater vehicles and high-tech remote rovers, allowed teams of local scientists to safely explore deep areas that were completely off-limits for generations. These robotic explorers can withstand intense underwater pressure, mapping dark trenches where human divers could never easily survive. When you follow these robotic cameras down, the entire mood of the lake shifts completely. You leave behind the bright, sunny tourist beaches and warm golden sunshine, descending rapidly into a freezing water column where natural light completely dies out past 300 feet. The cheerful vacation vibe completely evaporates, replaced by a dark, eerie silence that feels closer to a true crime mystery than a scenic postcard. What began as a routine scientific survey into the effects of the drought quickly took a dark turn as underwater cameras caught sight of shapes that forced researchers to realize that Tahoe's deep basin serves as a perfectly preserved sub-zero cemetery, the deep-water morgue. Well, this natural phenomenon comes down to the unique makeup of the lake itself. You see, far beneath the warm surface layers where tourists swim, the water temperature hits a constant near-freezing 39 degrees Fahrenheit. Along with this extreme cold, the deepest parts of the lake contain almost zero dissolved oxygen, turning the entire lower basin into a massive natural refrigerator. Under these precise conditions, a fascinating biological process takes over when someone drowns. This causes the normal decomposition process to completely stall, because anaerobic bacteria cannot produce the gases that typically cause a body to bloat and float to the top. Instead, the body fat converts into a hard, soap-like material known as adipocere, or grave wax, keeping human tissue intact for decades on the lakebed. A remarkable example of this occurred in the case of a local planner named Donald Christopher Windecker. In July of 1994, he went missing during a recreational scuba dive with a friend along the sheer drops of the Rubicon Wall. His diving partner reported that his equipment failed, causing him to sink rapidly into the darkness. For 17 years, his whereabouts remained a complete mystery until a technical diver spotted a shape in 2011. Local sheriff deputies deployed a remote operating vehicle down to a depth of 265 feet to investigate. They discovered his body wedged tight inside a steep rock crevice. Amazingly, the freezing water had kept him perfectly preserved. He was still wearing his full diving gear, including his insulated neoprene wetsuit, thick boots, and protective hood, looking almost exactly as he did the day he disappeared. While the cold protects these remains, a hidden war plays out against millions of deep-water scavengers. Tahoe is home to an invasive signal crayfish population now estimated at over 220 million adults. These creatures aggressively hunt for food along the lake floor, quickly consuming organic material. However, when a body becomes tightly wedged in rock fissures or remains encased in tough, thick neoprene, these scavengers cannot reach the tissue. Local sheriff departments acknowledge that dozens of drowning victims from the past century are still scattered throughout these unreachable trenches, completely hidden from sight. Yet human remains are only the beginning of what the receding waters and robotic rovers have exposed. Beyond these deep rock walls lie generations of toxic industrial secrets hidden inside heavy steel barrels. The sunken toxic secret. The true mysteries of the lake floor are defined by remarkable human miscalculations, most notably the legendary ghost ship known as the steamship Tahoe. Launched in 1896, this 169-foot vessel was the undisputed queen of the lake, carrying hundreds of passengers in luxury for decades. By 1940, newer commercial roads made the steamer outdated, and its owners decided to give the ship a respectful burial. The plan was to scuttle the vessel in only 100 feet of water, creating a shallow underwater attraction that glass-bottomed tourist boats could view from the top. However, the operators miscalculated the underwater topography. When the ship was sunk off the shore of Glenbrook, it hit a steep 30-degree incline and violently slid out of sight into the dark abyss. This massive steamship had run successfully for nearly 45 years, serving as a vital transportation link before being retired. But now, the steamer rests perfectly upright on the sloped mud bottom, with its bow sitting at 360 feet and its stern plunging down to 490 feet. Despite the fact that it was protected by the freezing 39-degree water, it serves as a beautifully preserved maritime monument, still sporting its intact wood and polished brass fixtures. For decades, this deep wreck was considered unreachable until elite technical teams executed record-setting, high-altitude scuba dives to map the ship. Building on that triumph, researchers recently pushed even deeper to discover what lies at the absolute bottom of the basin. In September 2025, conservationists and university scientists made history by deploying a specialized, remotely operated vehicle named Emmy down to the lake bed, nearly 1,500 feet below the surface. Using an advanced fiber optic tether to stream live 4K footage to thousands of viewers, the rover illuminated a silent, surreal moonscape. Instead of the toxic, industrial dump sites often described in internet legends, the cameras revealed drifting clouds of organic material floating over vast, granitic sediment. This historic expedition exposed a genuine environmental crisis, showing a 90% drop in native deep-water species caused by changing climate cycles and invasive translucent shrimp that migrate daily through the water. While these structural shipwrecks and robotic camera feeds paint a fascinating picture of human history and ecological change, the ROV cameras, panning past the deep mud fields, stumbled onto something even older, showing a haunting natural monument from an era when Lake Tahoe completely ceased to exist. The drowned ancient forests. Gliding across the dark lake floor, underwater exploration teams captured the jaw-dropping image of massive pine and cedar trees standing perfectly upright, rooted deeply into the underwater soil. These are not loose trunks washed in by a major storm or a sudden landslide. They are a fully intact, ancient ghost forest, standing exactly where they grew thousands of years ago, now buried dozens of feet below the current surface water. Divers navigating around these massive trunks describe the experience as walking through a frozen desert landscape hidden from the sun. For this, scientists used advanced radiocarbon dating to analyze wood samples from these ancient stumps, uncovering a startling truth about our planet's history. The data shows these trees grew naturally during prehistoric mega droughts that plagued the American West for hundreds of years at a time. During the mid-Holocene era, roughly 5,000 years ago, the regional climate shifted so dramatically that Lake Tahoe completely stopped overflowing into local channels, like the Truckee River. The water level dropped well below its natural rim for so long that a massive forest sprouted, grew to maturity, and thrived directly inside the empty lake basin before the water returned. What makes this discovery truly remarkable is the pristine condition of the wood. Normally, any tree submerged in water rots away within a few short years. However, because the deep water of Lake Tahoe stays completely frozen and lacks the dissolved oxygen and wood-boring organisms required for decay, the normal decomposition process never started. The wood fibers remained perfectly sealed and completely rock-solid, preserving the bark, root structures, and individual tree rings for millennia, as if the trees drowned only yesterday. This perfect state of preservation allows researchers to count the rings and map ancient weather patterns year by year. For modern geologists, this underwater forest functions as a terrifying climate warning system. It provides undeniable physical proof that Lake Tahoe's water levels are historically unstable, capable of swinging wildly depending on long-term weather patterns. This discovery demonstrates that nature can lock the region into centuries-old mega-droughts that would completely empty our modern water reservoirs and make current environmental crises look incredibly minor by comparison. Researchers are realizing that our current stable weather patterns might be nothing more than a brief pause in a much harsher cycle. While the ancient trees provide a remarkable look into historical climate changes, they also reveal a more immediate structural hazard. The solid shelves holding these petrified forests sit directly above a massive tectonic fracture network. The sleeping tsunami threat. Lake Tahoe is not an extinct volcanic crater, as many assume. It is a deep extensional basin created by intense tectonic movement that slowly shaped the Sierra Nevada mountain range over millions of years. Bounded by towering granite peaks, this beautiful alpine paradise hides a violent geological underbelly composed of three primary active fault lines running straight through the area. The West Tahoe Fault stretches along the western edge from Myers up toward Tahoe City, acting as the most volatile and dangerous line in the basin. Further out, the North Tahoe Incline Village Fault slices through the middle of the lake floor, while the massive Genoa Fault sits roughly 10 kilometers east of the shoreline, constantly adding immense structural stress to the valley. If a major earthquake with a magnitude of 7 or higher strikes along these active systems, the local consequences would be catastrophic. The violent seismic shaking would instantly trigger massive underwater landslides, causing total structural failures of the steep, submerged granite cliffs lining the basin. Famous technical diving locations like the Rubicon Wall, which drops almost vertically into freezing darkness, are highly vulnerable to sudden shelf collapses. Millions of tons of heavy rock, gravel, and loose sediment would tear away from the coast and slide down into the deepest trenches, violently displacing enormous volumes of water in seconds. As terrifying as it sounds, this exact geological nightmare has already happened. Clear structural evidence reveals that a massive earthquake roughly 4,000 years ago caused a giant chunk of the western lake bed to fracture and collapse entirely. This sudden displacement generated a massive inland tsunami with giant waves estimated between 30 and 100 feet high that completely reshaped the surrounding shoreline. The incoming wall of water was powerful enough to toss house-sized boulders into the lower Truckee riverbed and wash away mature layers of soil, leaving permanent geological scars across the landscape. If a similar seismic event occurred today, the modern risk profile would be absolutely devastating for lakeside communities. The initial inland tsunami would quickly transform into a massive seiche wave, which is a rhythmic harmonic wave that violently sloshes back and forth across an enclosed body of water. This continuous water movement would last for several hours, completely flooding low-lying towns, destroying critical infrastructure, and wiping out billions of dollars in premium lakefront real estate within minutes. Now, the underlying structural danger, combined with the real bodies trapped in the deep, has fueled a massive wave of local storytelling over the last century, producing wild myths that modern exploration teams can finally separate from reality using uncovered dive data. Let's debunk some myths. Fact from fiction. Perhaps the most popular viral rumor claims that famous ocean explorer Jacques Cousteau surveyed the deepest trenches of the basin in a specialized submarine during the mid-1970s. According to internet rumors, he supposedly emerged from his vessel looking completely pale and terrified, stating that the public was not ready to know what lay down there. When you look at actual historical archives, this captivating story falls apart completely. While the lake does preserve things exceptionally well due to the cold water, extensive side-scan sonar mapping of the entire lakebed by USGS and UC Davis has turned up zero evidence of a criminal dumping ground. There is absolutely no record or logbook entry showing that Cousteau ever visited the area or brought any underwater gear to these mountains. As historians confirmed, he was working in distant ocean waters. In fact, during the mid-1970s, he was busy filming his famous documentaries in the Mediterranean, Antarctica, and other ocean waters. So, the quote is completely fabricated. Another widespread myth involves old-school organized crime, a narrative heavily popularized by Hollywood movies. Local lore suggests that powerful Chicago and Las Vegas crime syndicates routinely used these freezing alpine depths as a convenient disposal site for their victims during the mid-20th century Nevada casino boom. While the idea of cement-shoed mobsters hiding in the darkness makes for an excellent movie backdrop, extensive robotic mapping projects have repeatedly scanned the vast lake floor. These high-resolution sonar operations have never discovered a single trace of criminal activity at the bottom, proving the tourist area was never used as a mob graveyard. The lake even has its own piece of classic cryptozoology known as Tahoe Tessie. For multiple generations, stories have circulated about a massive prehistoric serpent hiding inside deep underwater caverns beneath a landmark called Cave Rock. Modern science has put this campfire tale to rest. Because Tahoe is a nutrient-poor alpine lake, advanced high-frequency side-scan sonar systems have fully mapped the underwater terrain, revealing solid stone walls instead of hidden cavern networks, while proving that the lake completely lacks the large aquatic food chain required to support any mysterious giant creatures. Long before these modern legends emerged, the indigenous Washoe tribe, who are the ancestral caretakers of this sacred alpine water they call Da Auaga, shared their own traditional accounts. Their history speaks of powerful, dangerous spirits known as water babies residing around Cave Rock. Rather than an invented monster story, these ancient tribal teachings served as brilliant, culturally coded warnings. They successfully kept young children and hunters away from the treacherous, freezing undercurrents and sudden vertical drop-offs that can instantly pull an unprotected swimmer under, showing a deep human understanding of natural dangers. But as the sensationalized folklore fades away, it leaves behind a modern, human-made horror story that a dedicated army of divers is currently risking their lives to fight. The true battle for Tahoe's future. This fight for Lake Tahoe's future is unfolding just beneath the waves, along the entire 72 miles of its shoreline, where an extraordinary underwater cleanup is exposing decades of hidden garbage. Through a massive, historic effort called the Clean Up the Lake Project, teams of local scuba divers are manually searching the shallow shelves yard by yard. By swimming through freezing waters and shifting silt, these dedicated volunteers carefully combed the lake floor yard by yard to document the high amount of pollution left behind by decades of heavy tourism and local development. The actual data from this cleanup mission stunned the local community. Divers successfully pulled over 25,000 pounds of sunken garbage out of the water. This big haul included heavy industrial tires, old consumer electronics, thousands of toxic lead fishing weights, and broken structural pieces abandoned by careless shoreline construction crews. This collection of hidden trash highlights a long history of human neglect that remained completely invisible to the millions of boaters and tourists visiting the famous resort destination every summer season. This massive amount of trash is creating an invisible threat to Tahoe's world-famous water clarity. Historically, visitors could see objects clearly down to depths of nearly 70 feet. Now, as this sunken garbage slowly degrades over time, it breaks apart into millions of microscopic plastic particles. This microplastic pollution spreads through the currents, threatening to transform the pristine alpine water column into a synthetic chemical soup. At the same time, invasive species such as Eurasian water milfoil and Asian clams are rapidly multiplying in the shallower zones. These organisms thrive in the warmer waters caused by recent climate cycles, pushing out native species and speeding up the ecological decay of the basin. Lake Tahoe's icy depths will always guard its darkest secrets, yet the real crisis is no longer a mystery hidden at 1,600 feet. As changing weather patterns continue to alter the shoreline, we are forced to confront the permanent footprint we leave behind. This raises a much deeper question for the future of our natural world. Are we willing to change our relationship with these fragile ecosystems before the damage becomes completely permanent, or will we let our own waste become the next ancient layer buried at the bottom of the basin? Let us know what you think in the comments section below. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. For more content like this, click on the next video appearing right now on your screen.